Hello students, welcome to week 10 or week 2 of this new reality. You all stir crazy yet? I got these new skates and I've been skating in my driveway to stay in shape. We have a lot of stuff to get through, so let's get to it. Our example website has almost everything we needed to make a modern looking website, and this week we'll talk about a few of the last things we'll need to get there. First, background images. We have lots of options for background images. We can make them out of patterns and photographs, and either way, the HTML and CSS work basically the same. Plus, we've already seen what we can do with background color a little bit. So let's talk patterns. They consist of a small image repeated across or up and down to make a pattern. I like going to subtlepatterns.com when I want to use a pattern for a background. So photographs, the principles are the same with photos as they are for patterns, but there are usually a few more options for photos. One thing to keep in mind is that photos can repeat and look a little messy on a web page, but we can control this in CSS. Let's talk about background image in CSS. This is how you write it in CSS. Whether it's a pattern or a photo, background-image, your colon, URL, and then in parentheses, some path, and then a file name, and then your semicolon, of course. So now's a good time to try this with our example website. So download the file from Canvas, and when you get in there, open up the CSS. Now for our case here, we'll use style-rwd CSS. So I got it open here now in part 5 in the CSS folder right here. Once you're there, we'll use background image. And you want to use linear gradient. We'll try radial gradient next, but linear gradient first. And let's do red and blue. So we'll do red and blue, and by default, it'll go top to bottom with this color gradient. So if we save this here, go to our browser, to our sample website, refresh this. We have red at the top, and then kind of purple in the middle as it transitions to blue, and then blue at the bottom. Now again, by default, the gradient goes from top to bottom, like so. We can switch this up, change this to radial, and then we can go back to our browser, back to the top, and refresh, and you'll see kind of in the middle, it's blocked by all this content here, but you can kind of see the gradient go from the middle to the edge. You can kind of see it, so that's fun. Okay, let's change this up and do a pattern. I already got you a pattern to use, so all we need to do is use the code in CSS. Let's go back to our CSS here. We want to use URL. And then inside here, it'll be 2 dots, img /circles dark. PNG. Let's break this down a sec. My image is down in here in the img folder. So how we write this is 2 dots, because we're going up a level, We're going up a level because the CSS file is inside a CSS folder. And we need an image file in the IMG folder down here. So we go up using 2 dots, and then go down by typing the folder name, and then we specify the actual file that we need. You notice that I didn't use quotation marks inside the parentheses. For me, they worked with quotes or without quotes. So we'll stick without quotes for now. So this is what it looks like in Chrome. Refresh, and here is the pattern all the way down. So by default, it fills out the entire screen in all directions. But if for some reason you only want your pattern in a single file vertically or horizontally, we can control that in CSS. So go back to our presentation. We're making color gradients. We've made that gradient already. Made our background pattern. So we're using background repeat to do a single line of pattern here. We'll do that with background repeat. Let's do the Y direction to start out with. So if we save this, go back to our browser and refresh. So with background image and background repeat, we have our background repeating only in the Y direction, only up and down. If we were to switch this to repeat X, we'd have it go across the top here. So let's try that. Change this to repeat X, save this, come back here, refresh the page. Now we got the pattern going across the top here. If you don't want any repeating, you can do no repeat, like so. Save and refresh. Now you have one instance of your background image pattern. Let's go back to our presentation. Now with background position, you can move your image around. So using no repeat, you can use percentages, pixels, or words like center to move a single background image around. So let's do that real quick in here. Background position. Let's say, let's do 0%, 50%. Save this. So what I've done is I've told it to stay all the way to the left and then move down 50% down the page. So if we refresh our browser, our background image moves halfway down the page. 0% and then 50%. So let's see what a photograph can do. Go to our photographs here. So I'm going to change this to the image that I have given you already, which is here. Save this. And then here's what I have typed in, background image URL, and then the different photo here. Delete these. So we start fresh. Come back to our browser, refresh, and here's our picture. You see by default it repeats. This image I used happened to be long enough where it stretched across and fit. So we can use the same ways to control photographs in CSS as we did for patterns. So we can add here background no repeat so that it only shows up once. So with the image and no repeat, we'll get it just once up here. Here it is. It does not repeat because we said no repeat. We can also do background position if we want to move the background image around the same way we did before with percentages or pixels or words. And all of these are all well and good, but sometimes we want a little more pizzazz. So we can get more pizzazz with background size. So with a little more pizzazz, we can use background size for pizzazz. Background size. We can use pixels. We can use percentages, which can really alter the aspect ratio, so watch out. And then we can do some real pizzazzy things like background size cover. This will resize the image to make sure the container is fully covered. So you may see some weirdo stretching of your image. So if we tried that, cover, save this, refresh our browser over here, then it really stretches out. It covers the entire surface of your page, but that's it. And since it's stretched out a lot, it looks kind of weird. You're missing a bunch of the building. And so instead of background size cover, we can do background size contain. Which makes sure the image is completely visible within the containing div. So, like so. So here, this is what it looks like with contain and no repeat. The aspect ratio is maintained. It only shows up once because we did no repeat, though. So that's background size contain. So in this example over here, it could repeat if you scroll down and have not put background repeat, no repeat. 3 more important things to know. The first is background attachment. So you can set a background attachment that says whether your background is scroll or fixed. So by default, your background images will scroll. So back to our example. This image scrolls as you scroll down. But you can also switch it to fixed. So if we switch this to, oh. So we did background attachment fixed. And here you see the image stayed in place as you scroll down. Notice too, it is background size contain, and so it's contained in the same aspect ratio. Now we have background origin, which helps you control where the edge of the image starts. By default, the image starts at the padding, but you can make it do different things. You can make the background image start underneath the border. So this is called border box background origin. You can do padding box where the image starts where the padding starts. This is the default, so it starts here. And you can have content box where the background image starts at the edge of the content over here, not at the edge of the border of the padding. So there would be text here maybe. Background clip is sort of the opposite of background origin. That is to say, where does the image end? So in border box, it's virtually identical to border or background origin border box. It starts and ends within the border. Padding box, the difference is that the image is clipped here, but in background origin it's resized, and I'll show you an example of this coming up. And then content box, again, the image is clipped. See, the kitty cat's clipped over here, but it's resized in background origin content box. So you would see this example here. The top row is background origin. So the image is resized each time you go from a different setting. But in clip, the border here, you see it here, it gets further clipped here again, and then it gets cut even more here. So compare background origin here to background clip here. You see the difference. The difference is the image is resized in the background origin, and the difference, and then the background is clipped on the bottom row. I'll say that again. In background origin, the image is resized. In background clip, the image is clipped. And one last thought, background color is a good backup to have. So as I have in my code here, you should have a background color as a backup. So let's move on to HTML tables. First, you should ask yourself, should I put this information into a table? If the information is best presented in a table, then that's what you should do. You would probably need a table if you're trying to show a schedule, or make comparisons, or show information at a glance. So to do it, we use the table tag. For HTML tables, information is coded row by row, and then by cell in each of the rows. So once we have the table tag, we can do a TR tag. Let me back up a second. We have the T body tag to start the body of the table, and then we have the TR tag. And then we have TD, which stands for table data, or each of the cells of the table. We also have T-head, which defines a group of table rows, and often at the top of a table, so category names and things like that would go in a T-head. TH stands for table header, so you got to keep those straight. And it must be a direct child of a table row, so TR, so it has to be here. So all of this is the header, but the actual heading itself goes in TH. Tfoot stands for table footer, and you can use these to supplement the table header. So here is a full HTML table with T-heads, T-bodies, and then TRs, THs, TDs, all the stuff. We're going to build one. Here's the result of this table, and you're going to build this with me. Some other things to know. Here's call span. This is a notable attribute that you can use to show a merge cells effect. So here it is inside of a TR and T head. So call span equals 2. Here's the whole table. If you want to try this, you can type this out yourself and use a call span of 2. And here's the end result. With the call span spanning 2 columns, we did some extra CSS here to make the backgrounds in different colored text. But here is the 2-column span. Row span is also a thing. So here the rows span 2 rows per column. Same thing for balance over here. So use that. You can do this using row span. You can also work in columns using call and call group, but this is pretty advanced. So I suggest sticking with the rows. Here's the result. And in this example is for styling columns in CSS. So that is something you can do. Let's try it. We go to our code, Atom. So in our example file, there's already some HTML table in here. This is what this looks like. back here. Here's what the table that I already put in here looks like. We'll build a short table, that Beatles table that I showed you before in the code. This is how you do it. So I'll start this table below the existing table. Scroll down a little bit. Down here, our new table, closing table tag, and then we're going to use a T head. Inside the T head, we'll have a row, so TR, and then inside this TR is TH. The TH, we'll put name and the TH, and then another header instrument. So we have each of the Beatles names and their instruments, and then we want to close this TR. So this TR starts here and ends with this closing tag. We've got a name and an instrument, THs, and the next thing we build is the T body. No. Next thing we build is a T foot. And so this will mirror the head. So we can just copy this, paste it in there because it's the same thing. We're going to use the same thing. No such thing as TF. Keep the TH here. So let's save this and check in on our browser to see what we look like. So right now it doesn't look like much. We've got a T head and a T foot over here. Let's build the rest of it. Go back to Atom. So after the T head, oh, this is wrong. That should be here. So this is what I did. Table, T head, all here. T foot, all here. And now we build a T body. Sorry. Again, we build row by row, and then cell by cell. Let's get specific. And the row, next row, and the row again, one more row, last row, give the drummer some, and then we end our T body. And then we ended our table already. So here's our table. Table. We got a T head all here. Then we have T foot all here. Then the body goes here. And if we refresh our browser, then you can see that our head is still here. My cat walked by, and then we have our foot at the bottom, and then here is our cells. And that's a table.